She cheated on our anniversary, so I let her celebrate alone. She said she had plans that night. I smiled, said I understood. She had no idea I already knew what those plans really were. Our anniversary was coming up and I'd been planning something simple but meaningful. Nothing extravagant, just a quiet dinner at the place where we had our first date, a table near the back window where the lights from the city always looked like stars fallen to earth. I'd made the reservation weeks in advance. Picked up her favorite wine. Ordered a small custom gift that I knew would mean something, or at least I thought it would. I was counting down the days, looking forward to the kind of moment you hold onto, the kind you come back to during the hard times. But a few days before the date, I noticed something was off. She started acting distant. Not cold, just distracted. Her phone was always face down. She laughed less. And when I mentioned our anniversary, she blinked like she had forgotten, then quickly smiled and said, "Of course, I remember. I've just been busy with work." I let it go. Pretended not to notice how she always seemed to be texting someone else. Pretended not to see how her mood would shift every time she read a message. But deep down I knew. The gut never lies. And when it whispers, it's usually right. The night before our anniversary, she told me she had a long day ahead and might not be up for going out. Said her boss needed her to stay late and cover something important. "Rain check?" she asked, tilting her head with that soft voice she used when she wanted me not to be upset. I looked her in the eyes, nodded, and said, "Of course. We'll celebrate another time." She kissed me on the cheek, smiled, and walked away like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Because 2 days earlier I'd seen a message pop up on her laptop while she was in the shower. "Just a preview. Can't wait to see you again. Same time." There was no name. Just a heart emoji and a timestamp. It was enough. I didn't need the full conversation. I didn't need photos. I didn't even need to check who it was from. I already knew. There had been signs for months. Pieces that didn't quite fit, excuses that didn't make sense. I had just been hoping I was wrong. So instead of confronting her, instead of accusing or crying or begging for the truth, I made a different plan. I decided I'd let her celebrate. Just not with me. I didn't cancel the dinner reservation. I didn't return the gift. I went through the day like everything was normal, even kissed her goodbye as she left for work. She wore something nice. Said it was just in case her boss invited her to some networking thing afterward. I nodded. Smiled. Watched her walk out the door, already knowing where she was really going. That evening, I got in my car and drove to the restaurant alone. Told the host I'd only need one seat. He looked confused, maybe a little sympathetic, but didn't ask. I sat at that same table near the window. Ordered her favorite wine. Let the glass sit there across from me untouched. I even placed the small wrapped gift on her side of the table. I didn't expect her to come. That wasn't the point. I just wanted to feel what it would have been like if things had been different. If she had been who I thought she was. Halfway through the meal, I pulled out my phone and opened her profile. She had just posted a story, her clinking glasses with someone. The caption said, "Finally free tonight, black heart." I watched the video twice. Same dress. Same time. A reflection in the glass behind her showed just enough of the other person to confirm what I already knew. It wasn't work. It wasn't business. It wasn't me. So I did what I had quietly prepared myself to do. I took a photo of the empty seat, the untouched wine, the unopened gift. I typed a short caption. "Some anniversaries are better remembered than celebrated." I tagged her. And I tagged him. Then I put my phone down, took a sip of the wine, and watched the city lights blur through the window. I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. I was just done pretending. And that was the beginning of the end. The post didn't explode right away. It started slow, one notification here, another there. A like. A message. Then a comment. By the time I paid the bill and stepped outside into the cool night air, my phone was buzzing every few seconds. I didn't even need to open it to know what was happening. I had handed the truth to the world, and the world was reacting exactly as I expected it would. What I didn't expect, though, was how calm I felt. I thought maybe I'd be shaking or second-guessing myself or fighting the urge to delete it all before the damage set in. But there was no panic. No regret. Just a strange kind of relief, like I had been holding my breath for months and finally let it out. I walked the city streets alone that night, not with the weight of heartbreak, but with something else, clarity. A painful kind of clarity, sure, but one I could live with. I didn't cry. I didn't text her. I didn't wait for her to notice. I knew it was only a matter of time before her phone would light up like a signal flare. She didn't respond right away, which honestly surprised me. I thought maybe she'd try to deny it or call me or at the very least take the post down. But she didn't. Instead, she went quiet. Deleted her story. turned her account to private. That silence was more telling than any apology she could have given. It meant she knew. She knew there was no excuse. No version of the story that would save her. And the guy? He didn't say anything either. Not publicly. Not privately. He just blocked me. Like that would erase what happened. Like pretending it didn't exist could undo the damage. But the thing about betrayal is it doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It festers in silence. And both of them had just locked themselves in a room with nothing but the truth echoing off the walls. The messages started pouring in from friends. Some were shocked. Some said they had their suspicions. A few admitted they had seen things but didn't want to get involved. That part stung more than I expected. The idea that people knew maybe not everything but enough and said nothing. I wasn't angry at them. Not really. I understood how people can get caught between loyalty and discomfort. But it reminded me of something I'd been avoiding for a long time. I had been alone in this relationship long before that night. I had been loving for two, trusting for two, believing for two. And all the while, she had been elsewhere, giving parts of herself to someone who didn't deserve them any more than I did. That night, I went home to a quiet apartment. Her things were still there. Her shoes by the door, her jacket hanging on the hook, her favorite mug by the sink. I didn't touch any of it. I just stood there for a while, staring at the space we used to share, wondering how much of it had been real. How many of our memories were tainted by what I didn't know. It's a strange thing to lose trust in retrospect. You don't just question the end, you start to question the beginning. You wonder if the way she looked at you was ever genuine. If the times she said, "I love you," were ever honest. If the laughter, the shared jokes, the late-night conversations were just placeholders between her secrets. That's what betrayal does. It rewrites the past in invisible ink and you're left trying to decipher what parts were real and what parts were just performance. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the bed until the sun started rising. My phone kept buzzing, more comments, more messages, more support. Strangers shared their own stories. Some thanked me for saying what they couldn't. Others said they wished they had done something similar when they were betrayed. A few told me I was petty, that I should have handled it privately, that I went too far. But none of them had been in my shoes. None of them had planned a night to celebrate love only to be met with lies. And while I didn't care about opinions, one message stuck with me. It was short. Just 3 words: "You chose dignity." I read that one over and over again. Because that's what I had been trying to hold onto through all of this. Not revenge. Not anger. Dignity. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't confronted her in public. I hadn't broken anything. I just told the truth. And let the truth do what it always does, set things on fire. The next morning, she came home. Quiet. Hesitant. She didn't say anything when she walked through the door. Just looked at me, eyes tired, face pale. I didn't speak either. We stood there in silence until she finally whispered, "Can we talk?" I nodded and gestured for her to sit. But I didn't sit across from her. I stood. She looked up at me like a student waiting for a verdict. And in that moment I realized something I hadn't expected. I didn't need to hear her explanation. I didn't care about the excuses. The why didn't matter anymore. The fact was she made a choice. And now she had to live with the consequences of that choice. She started talking, mumbling through half-explanations, saying she felt confused, that she didn't know how to tell me things were changing, that she never meant to hurt me. I let her talk. I didn't interrupt. I didn't comfort her. I just listened. And when she finished, I said the only thing that mattered. "You cheated on our anniversary. That tells me everything I need to know." Her face crumbled. She tried to respond, but I turned and walked away. Not out of cruelty, but because the conversation was over. There was nothing more to say. Nothing she could fix. No apology that would erase what she had done. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt something close to peace. Because I had finally stopped asking why. I had finally stopped needing closure from someone who was never capable of giving it. She didn't leave that day. She lingered in the apartment, walking slowly through each room like she was seeing it all for the first time, or maybe the last. She kept looking over at me, eyes filled with something between regret and desperation, hoping I'd change my mind, hoping I'd crack and give her a second chance. But I didn't. I moved around her like she wasn't even there. Folded laundry. Answered emails. Cooked dinner for one. I could feel her watching me, waiting for a sign that the door hadn't fully closed, but I wasn't going to offer that. She had taken something sacred, our anniversary, the one day a year that was supposed to be just ours, and given it to someone else. That wasn't a mistake. That was a decision. One I didn't plan to forget. The next morning, I found her curled up on the couch, still wearing the same clothes from the night before. Her eyes were red and her phone was dead beside her. I didn't ask her anything. I just walked into the kitchen, made myself breakfast, and opened the blinds like it was any other day. Eventually, she stood up and walked into the bedroom. I heard drawers opening and closing, the soft rustle of a suitcase being unzipped. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't cry again. She just packed in silence and left. The door closed with the softest click I'd ever heard, but it echoed like thunder. After she was gone, I stood in the middle of the living room surrounded by the emptiness she left behind. The air felt still, too still, like even the walls were holding their breath. I let the silence stretch for hours. I didn't turn on music, didn't scroll my phone. I just sat there and let myself feel it all. Not the pain of losing her, because that pain had already come and gone, but the strange, sharp loneliness of being free. It's a paradox most people don't understand. You think freedom is what you want, but when you get it after betrayal, it comes with grief. Grief for the version of yourself that once believed, once hoped, once loved with no guard up. I started going through old photos that afternoon. Not to torture myself, but to make peace with the past. I wanted to see it clearly. Us smiling on vacations. Her laughing at some joke I made. Birthdays. Holidays. All those little moments that used to mean everything. Now, they felt like scenes from a movie I'd once watched 100 times but couldn't quite connect to anymore. It wasn't hate. I didn't hate her. I just didn't recognize her. And that, in many ways, hurt even more. Because I hadn't just lost her, I'd lost the belief that I ever truly knew her in the first place. The internet hadn't forgotten about us either. The post I made that night, the one with the empty chair, the untouched wine, the caption that carried more weight than any argument, had been shared thousands of times by then. Screenshots on story feeds, comments piling up, people sending it to their friends with captions like, "This is brutal," or "The calmest revenge I've ever seen." I didn't respond to most of it. I didn't even read all the messages. But every now and then I'd open one. Someone thanking me. Someone sharing their own story. A stranger telling me they'd been cheated on too and had felt like they were the only one. That part stayed with me. Because no matter how loud the world gets, betrayal makes you feel so incredibly alone. I started writing about it. Not for a blog, not for an audience, just for myself. Late nights, early mornings, pouring it all out into pages that no one else would read. I wrote down everything. The good. The bad. The messy. I didn't censor the parts where I'd ignored the signs. Where I'd made excuses. Where I'd held on when I should have let go. I wanted it to be real. Because if I couldn't be honest with myself, what was the point? That process helped more than I thought it would. The act of writing became a kind of therapy. A way to untangle the knot of emotions that had taken root in my chest. And somewhere between one journal entry and the next, I realized I wasn't just healing, I was transforming. The pain wasn't consuming me anymore. It was shaping me. Clarifying what I valued. What I needed. What I'd never settle for again. I started going out more. Reconnecting with old friends I had drifted from during the relationship. Not in some "I'm back and better than ever" way, but slowly, steadily. One coffee at a time. One laugh at a time. And with every step, the weight on my shoulders lightened. One night, I went back to that restaurant. The one where it all started to unravel. I didn't go with anyone. I didn't even sit at the same table. I just wanted to prove to myself that I could return to that place and not feel broken. And I didn't. I ordered the same wine. Took my time eating. Watched the lights outside shimmer against the windows. And when I left, I felt lighter. Like I had reclaimed something she never got to steal. That's the thing about heartbreak, it tries to convince you that you're smaller than you were. That your story ends with someone walking away. But I refused to let that be true. She may have cheated on our anniversary, but I chose how the story ended. And I chose to keep writing it on my own terms. The weeks that followed moved slowly, like the world itself had shifted into a lower gear. There was no dramatic resolution, no explosive ending, just quiet. And sometimes, that kind of silence is louder than anything. I went through each day doing the normal things, work, errands, exercise, sleep. But beneath the surface, something was different. I wasn't just getting over a person. I was unlearning the version of myself that had existed with her. That version, the one who made excuses for small lies, who gave second chances too easily, who mistook indifference for distance, was gone. And in his place was someone who had finally stopped bargaining with disappointment. I didn't check her profile anymore. I didn't reread our messages. I didn't replay old conversations trying to find the moment where it all started to fall apart. Because the truth was, it hadn't happened in one moment. It had happened slowly, quietly, through 1,000 tiny cracks I chose to ignore. People around me noticed the change. Some asked if I was okay. Others didn't say anything, just offered quiet support, an invitation to lunch, a text to check in. The ones who mattered stayed close without prying. The ones who only wanted gossip fell away. And that in itself was a gift. Because betrayal doesn't just reveal the person who wronged you, it reveals everyone around you. It shows you who truly sees you, who listens, who holds space for your pain without trying to dress it up or explain it away. And those people? They're gold. They reminded me that while one person had chosen to lie to me, not everyone would. One night, about a month after it all came crashing down, I got a message from someone I hadn't heard from in years. We used to be close, college friends who drifted apart like so many do. He had seen the post, the one I made on the night of the anniversary, and wrote simply, "You okay?" That message hit differently. It wasn't full of pity. It wasn't loaded with questions. Just 3 words that carried more weight than he probably realized. We ended up meeting for coffee, and what started as a quick catch-up turned into hours of conversation. We talked about everything: life, work, the people we used to be. And somewhere in that conversation I laughed. Really laughed. Not the forced kind, not the polite chuckle. A real, deep laugh that came from a place I thought had been closed off for good. And in that moment I knew I was healing. Not fully. Not yet. But the process had begun. As for her, she stayed gone. I heard through mutual connections that she had moved out of town. That she was taking time to work on herself. Maybe that was true. Maybe it was just something she told people to quiet the noise. I didn't care either way. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't hoping for anything from her. I had let go. Completely. And that, I realized, was the most powerful thing I could have done. Because letting go isn't about giving someone else a pass. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of what-ifs and unfinished conversations. It's about choosing peace over justice. And peace, real, honest peace, doesn't come from someone else fixing what they broke. It comes from knowing you survived it anyway. I started writing again. Not just journal entries, but real writing. Short stories, essays, pieces that took all the chaos in my head and gave it structure. It was therapeutic in a way nothing else was. There was something about putting words on paper that made the pain feel smaller, more manageable. It gave shape to the formless ache I had carried since that night. And the more I wrote, the more distance I put between who I was then and who I was becoming. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about making anyone feel what I had felt. It was about understanding that heartbreak doesn't mean you failed, it means you were brave enough to love. And even braver to walk away when that love turned into something you didn't recognize. Then, one evening, I found myself back at the restaurant where it all began. Not intentionally. I was walking downtown with a friend and we passed by it. He asked if I wanted to go somewhere else, but I said no. I walked in, asked for a table, and sat down. Same corner. Same view. But this time it wasn't about reliving the past. It was about reclaiming it. I ordered my favorite dish. Skipped the wine. Took my time eating. Looked out the window at the same city lights that had once blurred through tears. But this time I saw them clearly. Sharply. And they were just lights. Nothing more. Nothing less. And in that clarity, I found something I hadn't expected: closure. That's the thing about moving on. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in pieces. In quiet victories. In the moment you no longer feel the urge to check their social media. In the day you forget it was your anniversary. In the night you sleep soundly without dreaming of what was. It's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes healing looks like sitting alone in the place where your heart broke and realizing it doesn't hurt anymore. Not in the same way. Not enough to stop you from breathing. She cheated on our anniversary. That part will never change. But what followed, that was mine to shape. And I chose growth. I chose truth. I chose to let the pain pass through me without letting it turn me into someone bitter. I didn't burn bridges. I didn't throw punches. I didn't scream into the void. I just opened my hands, let go of what was never really mine, and walked away. That's the kind of ending I can live with. That's the kind of peace no one can take from me. Time, as it often does, began to reshape everything. The sharp edges of pain dulled. The memories lost their grip. The moments I once replayed in my mind started to fade like worn-out film. I wasn't haunted anymore. I wasn't waking up thinking about what she did or what I could have done differently. I wasn't living in the questions. I had stopped needing answers. That was the real turning point, not the night I let her walk away, not the post that went viral, not even the silence that followed. It was the day I no longer felt her absence like a hole in my chest. That's when I knew I had made it through. Not untouched, not unchanged, but unbroken. Stronger in ways I didn't even realize I was growing. I used to believe that closure came in the form of a conversation. A final explanation. A heart-to-heart that makes sense of everything. But I've learned that sometimes closure isn't given, it's created. You make peace with the fact that some people will never own what they did. That some endings don't come with an apology or a reason. You stop searching for justice and start building your own peace. That's what I did. I stopped waiting, stopped hoping, and started living. Not out of spite, not to prove anything, but because I deserved to. Because the version of me who sat alone at that dinner table on our anniversary, he deserved more. He deserved to feel something other than betrayal. And I owed it to him to build a life where that kind of hurt had no place to grow. I changed my routines, started waking up earlier, spent more time outdoors, picked up new hobbies, met new people, even traveled a little. Not to run from what happened, but to run toward what was waiting for me beyond it. I stopped defining myself by the worst thing someone else did to me. I stopped looking in the mirror and seeing the guy who got cheated on. Instead, I started seeing the guy who stood up with dignity, who told the truth without rage, who let the world see what grace looks like when everything around you falls apart. That's something to be proud of. That's something no one can take away. The friends who stuck by me through it all, those who didn't turn away when things got messy, are still in my life. They became more than friends. They became proof that loyalty still exists, that not everyone runs at the first sign of discomfort. We built something stronger from the ashes. A tighter circle. A deeper bond. It's funny how betrayal has a way of clarifying things. Of burning away what's fake and leaving behind only what's real. I don't regret what happened. I wouldn't want to live through it again, but I don't regret it. Because it taught me more than any peaceful relationship ever could. And then, one day, completely unexpected, I met someone new. Not in the dramatic, sparks-flying kind of way. It was quiet. Simple. Real. A shared glance at a bookstore. A conversation over coffee. It didn't feel like trying to replace what I lost, it felt like discovering something I didn't even know I needed. We took things slow. I was honest from the beginning, not about the details of my past, but about who I had become because of it. And she didn't flinch. She didn't try to fix me or fill a gap. She just listened. And in that listening, I found something gentle. Something kind. Something I hadn't felt in a long time, hope. But this story isn't about her. It's about me. It's about the journey from being blindsided to standing in the light. From sitting across from an empty chair to realizing I was always enough on my own. She cheated on our anniversary. That much is true. But I chose how the rest of the story would go. I chose honesty. I chose grace. I chose not to let her betrayal define me. Now, when I think about that night, it no longer stings. It just exists like a chapter in a book I've already finished. One I learned from. One I'll never reopen. And that's the beauty of healing. It doesn't erase the past, but it rewrites your relationship with it. It gives you power over what once had power over you. So if you're listening to this and you've been betrayed, if someone took what was supposed to be your day, your moment, and turned it into something painful, know this: you don't have to fight fire with fire. You don't have to scream to be heard. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is say nothing at all and just walk away. Let the silence speak for you. Let the truth be enough. Thank you for being here. If this story meant something to you, if you saw yourself in it, or if it reminded you of your own strength, please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. You're not alone. And your next chapter is still unwritten.